Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of our F125 Career Mode. I hope you're all having a great day. Today we are bringing a new upgrade package coming into Miami for, well, unfortunately a sprint weekend, but we are nonetheless excited to hit the racetrack, and this week and maybe the next week as well, the next week and a half, 2 weeks or so, are going to be pretty light on content here on this channel because, well, NASCAR 25 is just hitting its release window. And as you guys know, this is my secondary channel. My main channel is all about NASCAR, so all focus is on that side of things right now and making sure I get the content out that I need to get out for that release. So it's going to be pretty light here because I'm going to be very, very busy putting out NASCAR content and getting everything done that I need to get done over on that side of things. But here we are in Miami trying to get things done here this weekend from what's going to be a bit of a wet start to the weekend. It's supposed to rain as well in qualifying for the main Grand Prix. So after, of course, the sprint is all said and done. But overall in practice, actually, you know, as you guys know, I struggle quite a bit when it comes to the more wet conditions in this game, but I felt fairly confident overall here with my pace in practice, and this was good practice for me to get because I knew I was going to be racing at some point qualifying on a wet racetrack, so I was pretty happy to go out here in FP1 on a wet track. As you can see me with a big lock up there at the end of the third lap, but overall, yeah, like I said, I was pretty content with the way the car was driving, and I was confident going into the rest of the weekend. So at the end of FP1, actually at the top of the board, Aiden Jackson in P10. We've talked about it already. Jackson, it's not been a pretty season for him as we'll head into sprint qualifying now, and pay attention to Oscar Piastri. He's been on a bit of a redemption arc after some mechanical failures early in the season. Now he has been able to win a couple of races back-to-back and really cement himself as saying, like, hey, you know, when we're not having issues, I mean, we are a team that is going to be a championship threat. Right now, we don't even really know who's the true championship threat. We don't even know what team, because Ferrari has been able to threaten McLaren. Red Bull, they're a little ways back, but, you know, Aston Martin, Max Verstappen specifically, of course, he had a pretty rough past few races after such a strong first few races. Things haven't quite gone the way he would have liked here recently, as we were just not that great here in SQ1, but fortunately, we were just quick enough to advance. We were the last one in, barely going into SQ2. Paul Aaron at the bottom of the grid, Lance Stroll out in Q1. It seems like Aston Martin, they're just kind of falling behind a little bit. They definitely are going to need to focus on an upgrade package, and with the high inflation that we're facing in this 2026 season, upgrades are slower and they're just harder to come by, and I think that we're going to see a team that can kind of manage at the best be the team that really maybe takes off, especially in the final half of the second season, as here we are in SQ2 coming to the line. Way more of an improvement, but still not enough. We're going to be out in Q2, and Jackson's going to be P14. Sonoda, Albon out, as well as we have got some work to do here going into the sprint. Not a surprise, it's been a trend all season long that we struggle in qualifying, as we're going to jump straight into the action here on the formation lap. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri up front, Piastri on pole over Lando Norris, Leclerc, and Verstappen qualifies fourth. So maybe ending the bleeding a little bit for Aston Martin here with Hamilton, Russell, Colapinto, Behrman, Antonelli, and Hadjar all in the top 10. How about as well Antonelli? Of course, it's not been, you know, everything he's been looking for since he's come into Formula One so far, but here he is slowly kind of, it feels like, progressing back into the right direction, and it's all about kind of, you know, bringing that confidence back up here as we get ready to go here. Coming to the grid, the sprint race, it's going to be 10 laps of action. Some cloudy skies, but it's going to stay nice and dry. We're racing here from Miami for the first of 3 United States Grand Prix. Now as we settle in, now jump to the inside into turn number 1. We're 3 wide. I have to pretty well bail out of the corner to make sure we don't get into any contact, as Jackson's making contact with both cars on either side of Hadjar and as well Hulkenberg into the Audi. We clear the German driver now is up front. It's still Piastri as well as Lando Norris. It looks like Norris Norris has gotten the jump on Piastri. He's jumped into the lead here in the sprint now over the Ferraris, and the Aston Martin of Verstappen, who started 4th, settles into 4th here, just in front of Lewis Hamilton now, and everyone else is going to do the same thing. Settle in and get ready. As we would jump down into the end of the long straightaway, we were passing, or staying ahead, I should say, of Nico Hülkenberg here as Jackson slides across the nose right there of the V-Carb Ford of Isaac Hadjar, who started P10, has dropped down 2 positions on this opening lap into the 12th position. As for myself, pretty happy and content with this start. It could have been a little bit better, but it certainly could have gone worse. We were in a bit of a compromised position there into turn number 1, so I felt like overall this worked out pretty well for us now as we come to the end of this lap. And I don't want to waste a lot of time. I want to attack Isaac Hadjar immediately as Esteban Ocon has moved his Haas up into 14th, and we're going to pass Hadjar, who actually, he kind of let me go, and then he actually decides to outbrake me into turn 1. Nonetheless, we keep the job done there around the outside. Into P12 we go as we continue to now follow Aiden Jackson, who's making a move on Gabriel Bortoleto in the Audi here as we go into this midway point of the second sector, and Jackson can't quite make the move. They're going to go wheel to wheel, close quarters, racing into the chicane. Bortoleto stays ahead for the 10th spot as I nearly drill the back of the rear wing of the fellow Connor Sport teammate now as we head down towards the DRS zone. This is going to be a perfect opportunity for Aiden Jackson or Bortoleto. Can he hang on as here comes Esteban Ocon? Jackson going for a move on the Audi. Ocon's going to get around my outside. That Haas has got a lot of speed early on here in this sprint, so watch out for them to continue to go forward as well. Behrman showing up this weekend with some great speed, so I'm not necessarily surprised to see Ocon moving in the right direction. A lap later, here we come towards lap 5, and he's now making a pass on Bortoleto as Jackson has gone and taken off, and I think Ocon's going to be a threat to go run down Jackson before this is over as well, as we've already just about hit the halfway point. Big moment into turn 1. They both check up way early. We barely keep it on the racetrack and have to lift there for Ocon, but we get through on Bortoleto, and now we're going to have to try and run back down Esteban Ocon. Well, we're already here, but can we get him in the DRS now, as Jackson loved what he saw in his mirrors there, seeing some battles now as he's a good 2.5 up the road now as the 2 McLarens continue to fight each other now as we come to lap 7 of 10 here from this sprint now, and both myself and Ocon have just kind of stayed in line and have run down Aiden Jackson, so we're both going to have an opportunity to get forward. Jack Doohan's out of the sprint. We'll get an immediate replay of that. He loses it all on his own, running at the back of the grid with his teammate of Pierre Gasly. They are the worst team by far this season, and as that all went down, we stayed green. Ocon passes my teammate of Aiden Jackson and moves himself into P10. None of these, of course, being 4 points. None of us are even close to it being in a position to score a point here with 3 laps to go. As you can see, though, Esteban Ocon continuing to drive away as we've got more yellows into turn 1, and it's Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen with a mechanical failure. He's out here in the sprint. We pass by, and that means he'll be taking a grid penalty for the Grand Prix. He'll have to start from the back of the field as we continue to watch some sprint chaos take off here now, as I'm going to use the DRS right now to pass my teammate of Aiden Jackson and move us up into the 10th position. Esteban Ocon trying to chase down his teammate of Behrman for the final point here in the sprint now as we move up into that 10th spot chasing P9, as up front the battle is on between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Piastri's got DRS. Could this be the final chance he has to get to the lead? Contact and winglet goes flying, damage to the front of Piastri's car, and he's going to have to pit. Who's at fault on that one? Oh, the McLarens, they come together. Piastri has to pit for a new wing coming to the final lap, and he should have stayed out and just rode it out for P2, but no, he's going to give up all points, and he's going to come out well outside of the top 10, and obviously with 1 lap to go, he's going to be ineffective, and the McLarens in this championship battle come together now as we on this final lap suddenly are promoted into a position to maybe steal a point from Ocon as Lando Norris hangs on a cruise here to win the sprint as we get to the back of Ocon, but it's not going to be enough. We'll have to settle for, well, no points unfortunately, but it's going to be P9 and P10 for myself and Aiden Jackson. Hold on, we've got to run on the Frenchman to the left side, drag race to the line. Not quite enough. Ocon hangs on for the final point. What a sprint. P9, and boy did we have some drama. Verstappen, of course, with the engine failure, as well as Piastri running into the back of Lando Norris. That's a big one. As you see the finishing order, Colapinto in P6, and how about Mercedes right there, 4th and 5th, with Russell and Antonelli putting up a great effort as well. Both the Haas cars scoring points as well. As we're going to jump straight into qualifying now for the Grand Prix, and it's going to be a dry start to qualifying here in Q1. It should be raining in Q2. That was kind of when the rain was projected to hit the circuit at this point now. So as for myself, making a lap late here in Q1, but we know at this point our pace is probably around 10th to 12th here this weekend, and in Q1 we come to the line with the DRS open and we actually go P10, and it would be enough to get us through P11. And Aiden Jackson's out in Q1 along with Russell and Stroll. Again, the Audi's at the bottom of the grid, and Jackson just continues to kind of just be on that struggle bus this season. Things are not clicking for Jackson in his second season as a teammate of mine, of course, and as we come through into Q2, we continue to kind of be the standout at Connor Sport and kind of carry this team everywhere on all fronts, and qualifying and as well, and the races as well, and I expect that's going to be the same scenario here today as well, as we're putting up a impressive pace here in Q2 as we come through into the final turn in these wet conditions at this point. Of course, it's not like a washout here, it's just it's wet. It's not super wet, but it is wet. We come through to cross the line, and we actually go top of the board, and to my surprise, that stays. We actually get through into Q3, and Lewis Hamilton is out and Lando Norris is out. Continuous surprises this weekend as we go into Q3. We have an Alpine of Pierre Gasly, who was super slow in the first part of the weekend, including the sprint, who's made it into Q3. He really has benefited off of these wet conditions. As we jump through into Q3 now, you can see the conditions have definitely gotten a bit more wet between Q2 and now, and this is pretty early in the session because the rain was actually going to get a little bit heavier. So I was, of course, trying to get a lap in as soon as possible as Antonelli actually goes top of the board, and he is really stepping up this weekend. Good qualifying in the sprint, good sprint effort. Now looking like a pretty good qualifying effort for the Grand Prix as well, as Piastri goes top of the board here now, and he's looking for a bounce back for the second half of the weekend. As for myself, it's not going to be the same pace we had in Q2, where P4, and by the end of things, we dropped to 5th, as is Leclerc on pole over Piastri, Verstappen, Esteban Ocon in P4 over myself, Colapinto, Albon, Tsunoda, Antonelli, and Pierre Gasly, as we'll head straight into the Grand Prix here on Sunday. We're going to jump straight through past the starting grid into the race strategy, as we're going to be starting on mediums that will be going on to the hard compound tire. It is a simple one-stop race here from Miami, and we actually move up to P4 due to the Max Verstappen grid penalty after the engine failure, so he is going to have his work cut out for him. It could be 3 consecutive rough races as we get ready to roll here now off of the grid. How about Esteban Ocon and Haas up here in the top 3? As for us, P4 because of the Verstappen penalty. I feel like if it stayed dry in qualifying, we would have been probably 9th or 10th. This is a rare moment where the rain actually helped me. I was very surprised with the sudden change up of where I've always struggled in these wet conditions. Well, now we've done a complete 180 where the rain actually benefited my track position, as we have gotten ourselves in the first 2 rows for going racing here under the sunny skies, fortunately, on Sunday afternoon from this Miami Grand Prix. Definitely still have a work cut out for us. I know we're probably going to have to fight really hard if we're going to hang on to a 4th or a 5th place effort as well. We know Lewis Hamilton is going to be coming through the grid. We know Lando Norris is going to be coming through as well. I mean, don't rule out Max Verstappen. I think it's going to be more difficult for him because he's still, as good as he is, his car is still not as good as the Ferrari or the McLaren as well. Those have been the 2 standout teams, and they've got 2 drivers deep in the field trying to work their way forward here now as Max Verstappen lines up to the back of the grid. 29 laps of racing. Leclerc, Piastri, who's going to be first into turn number 1. It's crucial here as we're racing now. The Miami Grand Prix is underway, and even start with Esteban Ocon into turn 1 side by side for the lead. Piastri and Leclerc nearly run into the side of each other now. They're not going to lift. One of them has to. Who's it going to be now as Ocon gets clear of myself, and up front, Piastri still not quite clear of Leclerc. And they'll continue wheel to wheel wheel. Perfect for myself, allowing me to be right here having a great view of this now. But Piastri gets the job done. What a pass right there from the Australian to get himself out in front and now try to take control of this Miami Grand Prix. Colapinto and Albon just behind myself. Colapinto continues to impress in his first full-time season as a Formula One driver with Red Bull Racing now, as we are going to just use my battery up to make sure we can kind of defend over Colapinto now as Leclerc. He's coming back at Oscar Piastri. Bit of a slide right there out of the DHL Haas of Esteban Ocon. Now they're still side by side for the lead once again. This time it's going to favor Leclerc. They were side by side into the chicane, but the Monegasque gets the position as Piastri has to settle into P2. As for us, a great start. We started P4. We get off the line well through turns 1 and the chaos and everything's worked out. We're still in the 4th position now up front. Piastri again pulling out a line to make a move on Charles Leclerc into the final heavy braking zone on the circuit now. Who's going to get it this time? They will continue wheel to wheel on the exit of the final turn, and now as they head through the curves and the bends, it's Piastri back out in front over Leclerc. A few passes on the opening lap for the lead, and Piastri would settle in finally as now DRS starts to take effect on lap 2, and it's going to be very difficult to, of course, maintain the lead if you're not out of the DRS zone, as here we go for a potential move on Esteban Ocon. We open up the rear wing, pull out to the left side. Battle is going here for 3rd, and a battle up front as well as we slice up the inside. Leclerc to the lead, myself into P3 over Esteban Ocon now as we continue to impress in these opening laps. Franco Colapinto looking to maybe take 4th place as well from Esteban Ocon here now, but hold on, Ocon coming back up the inside. Nope, he actually concedes as they're still side by side for the lead in front of us between Leclerc and Piastri. Those two just cannot stop battling, maybe showcasing just how even right now both the Ferrari and the McLaren are. This is going to be a super exciting championship going right down to the end of the season. Contact between the two, and they're bringing myself right into the conversation, but Piastri gets the job done again on Leclerc. Absolutely fantastic battles happening right now as actually Esteban Ocon into the braking zone with the DRS, gets back up my inside, and I actually lift right here because I just did not want to be side by side. So we drop back down to P3, but I say one straightaway later, okay, I'll come back at you. So let's go get the lead, or not the lead, let's go get P3 back from you. Thank you very much. Around the outside, we'll be back into the 3rd position. We've got one podium in our Formula One career. It came at the last United States Grand Prix, of course, at Las Vegas. I just don't see it happening today because as we've lost the arrest from the drivers in front, draining my battery, it made me practically defenseless to Esteban Ocon at the end of lap 5, and unfortunately he drives past me, and to make matters worse, he's starting to open up the gap a little bit now, and now I'm kind of going into defense against Colapinto and Antonelli as well, as there's a big gap between Antonelli and the cars behind of Tsunoda, as well as Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton's been clawing his way forward. Lando Norris as well is doing the same thing, but Hamilton's making a lot more progress right now, and he is very well going to probably run us down before this race is over. Ocon with a bit of a slide out of the chicane does a good job maintaining control of that Haas, but unfortunately we continue to face the same fate of just struggling to keep my battery up, and unfortunately that's going to make me defenseless again just about on Franco Colapinto, who's up my inside, near contact right there between himself and I, as now he's going to take the position kind of cross my nose right there and said you were not having it, and he takes P4. We dropped to 5th, and as well Kimi Antonelli just behind by a few tenths of a second. He is having a really strong start to this race as well as we come through, fortunately opening up a gap now by lap 10 to Antonelli now is Max Verstappen. Look at this, him and Jackson have barely gone anywhere. They are stuck at the back of the pack. 19th for Jackson, 20th for Verstappen. Things are just not going well for Verstappen over these last 3 weekends of racing as we continue to watch the battles up in front. Colapinto moves up into 3rd, makes a pass on Esteban Ocon now into a podium position as Piastri and Leclerc continue to run away. They have already got a huge gap on the rest of the field as we are approaching the halfway point of this United States Miami Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton has now driven up to the back of Kimi Antonelli after passing Yuki Tsunoda, so I know at this point it's just a matter of time until he runs me down. He has now passed Antonelli. As you can see, Colapinto trying to defend over Ocon here, who's trying to put a little bit of pressure on him, but both of us are going to be coming into the pits here. So Leclerc's in, Ocon's in, I'm in. We're going to put on the hards and go to the end of this race. Hamilton's going to go by, same for Antonelli. Tsunoda, though, he comes in behind us there for the Red Bull team. He'll be making a stop for the hards as well. Very simple strategy here today this weekend in Miami. It's just one stop onto the hards from the mediums. Of course, not really a lot of thinking goes into the strategy here as we'll head back onto the racetrack right behind Esteban Ocon now as we'll rejoin the track and already got ourselves in a really good spot. We've pitted and we're still in the top 10. It's not very often this season or really at all, with this kind of sport team that we can say, we actually make our pit stop and before the pit stop cycle is completed, we're already still hanging on to a top 10 position. Of course, we have got a top 5, top 6 day on the way, which has been a common trend this season outside of how Bahrain went, as we've got yellow flags and it's behind us in, I believe it's the Red Bull. It is the Red Bull. Yuki Tsunoda slow and it's going to be a mechanical failure there for the Japanese driver. Day over for Tsunoda and Red Bull Racing now as this pit cycle is running its course and we're going to come out just in front of Lewis Hamilton and that will put us back into the 4th position. Colapinto is actually behind Hamilton. That's a bit of a surprise. So that's a free position for us, but can Colapinto run us back down before we reach the conclusion of this race? Now as we got yellow flags into turn 1 is Piastri. Oscar Piastri with a mechanical failure moments after Tsunoda and his race is over and that's going to be his 3rd mechanical failure already this season. Can you believe it? And what is that? 6 races, 3 mechanical failures, or 7 races? I cannot believe that. And now Lewis Hamilton immediately has run me down and just a lap later and he's going to pass us and here comes Franco Colapinto as well, who's going to do the same. He's going to pass me into the braking zone. We're going to actually fight back up the inside of Colapinto and not make this one so easy on him, but he's just got more pace outright than me right now. But look at the gap. I don't know what's happened, but Antonelli is 9 seconds back and actually in a fight with Carlos Sainz. So unless there's a safety car, we're guaranteed a 5th place finish at the worst, unless something goes wrong for us. And unfortunately, my pace, just when we went onto this hard tire, my pace had disappeared and I just didn't have what I needed to keep up right now with Colapinto or Lewis Hamilton. Lando Norris is now rebounded up into the top 7, so he is making some headway as we come towards the final 10 laps of racing. With, of course, Piastri out, Leclerc is a 12-second gap. He's on an island of his own as he leads over Esteban Ocon, who's in position right now to put Haas on the podium. How about that? But hold on. Colapinto is reeling in Ocon just like Hamilton did, so this is not going to be easy for him as I'm just a few seconds back. Antonelli, he's probably going to lose out to Lando Norris before this race is over, but as well, again, both Haas cars in the top 10 with Ocon there in the top 3 and Behrman currently in P8 through to Sainz and Russell to round out the top 10. Verstappen only up to 17th and Jackson has gotten up into 14th. Jackson's made more progress than Max Verstappen has, which is a bit surprising to say the least. Nonetheless, as we come to lap 23, Esteban Ocon has dropped down into 4th place and he is struggling more on pace than I am. But I have a new problem developing. You see that yellow fuel light right there beside my 8th gear? I am running a bit short on fuel, and if I keep going at full capacity of just pushing to the end, I'm not going to make it on fuel, so I am going to have to save fuel in these closing 5 laps, and I can confirm Esteban Ocon actually has a mechanical issue that's slowing him down, but this is actually a big help for me, because now we've got DRS from Esteban Ocon, and I can now lift and coast into some of these corners to save the fuel that I need to make it to the end. Look at this, we're 0.2 laps short, which is a pretty big number. So what I'm going to do now is we would start to lift and coast. We have quickly close that number down, and you can just hear me lifting and lifting, not hitting any of the brakes or the throttle for as long as possible, and you see how quickly that number shifts back in towards the green. So I was just kind of riding for a few laps laps. Here I am again, lifting, now onto the brakes, boom, into the green, but we're gonna have to do this for another lap or so. Basically, we're gonna have to wait till the final lap to pounce because I am burning through quite a bit of fuel. So I'm going to spend lap 28 just continuing to maintain my gap to Ocon, but save fuel. And as we come towards the final lap, you can see we've now gotten our fuel into the positive to 0.14. So now I know, okay, I'm free to go. I'm gonna make it to the end. It's time to go. Esteban Ocon, can we run him down as we start the final lap? We are right here within striking distance of the Frenchman. Leclerc is already down the long back straightaway here. He's got just one more DRS straight to deal with, and he'll be on cruise control to victory. Hamilton got into second, and it's going to be Colapinto in P3, but it's going to be a Ferrari 1-2 after a rough day for McLaren with Piastri's mechanical failure while leading. Norris is still down in P8 after George Russell has climbed his way through the grid and as well passed his teammate Antonelli. A slide from Ocon. That's what we need right there. Here we go down the straightaway, and we'll get through this battery, use some DRS, we'll pull out a line, we'll go wheel to wheel with the DHL. Haas down into the braking zone for P4. Can we get it into the left-hander? Leave just enough room for Ocon as we come through the long sweeping right-hander. We take P4. Now we just have to hang on down the final DRS straight. Lewis Hamilton will have to settle for P2 while he watches Charles Leclerc take victory for the second time this season here in Miami. That'll make it a Ferrari 1-2. Franco Colapinto on the podium. Esteban Ocon with DRS. I've got literally 0% battery, and Ocon's gonna lunge at us around the outside into the final braking zone, but it's not gonna be enough. And just like we were fighting in the sprint to the checkered flag, we do it again with the same driver in the Grand Prix, but we hang on this time for the 4th position. A great race all around. We once again, I feel like for like the 3rd, 4th time this season, we outran what the true capabilities of this car were for the weekend, as George Russell will score driver of the day here from this United States Miami Grand Prix. I mean, we cannot complain about that. We obviously didn't have a car that should have finished, in my opinion, 4th, but you benefit off of making no mistakes, getting through qualifying without issues, and I think that's been making a big difference this year, as we've been seeing some big drivers have issues on Saturday in qualifying, and they have to spend the race working their way through the grid. Hamilton probably wins if he puts together a proper qualifying on Saturday. I mean, we saw the pace he had to drive all the way back up to 2nd. Colapinto on the podium as well. A great effort for him, as he's kind of already becoming the leader at Red Bull very quickly after Tsunoda's had a whole season alongside Verstappen. It doesn't seem to be doing him a whole lot, but of course he did have that mechanical failure. Not much he can do about that. But Colapinto is ahead of Tsunoda in the standings, but we are P6. Leclerc and Norris are now tied for the lead over Hamilton, who's 9 back. Piastri 35 points back. I mean, he would be right in the mix if it wasn't for the 3 mechanical failures that he's now had. My teammate of Jackson down in 13th, as we're P5 in the constructors, and Ferrari now at the top over McLaren. That does it for me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.